Okay, so semitones and whole tones. Right, here we have a keyboard, piano keyboard with 2 octaves. Now, what is an octave? Right, so if we start here, that note, as you can see, is C. Now, if we carry on and we just use the alphabet, we go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and we get the next C note. And if we follow that same process, D, E, F, G, A, B, there we get C again. So we actually have a low C, a second octave C, and then a third octave C. Alright, so what is a semitone? A semitone, let's say we start here in the middle of the keyboard with this C note over here. And we take a single step from here to the very next note. Now you can see that showed C sharp. There is C sharp. So semitone is just one step away from the initial note. So the initial note was C, and the semitone is one step away from that. So that was a semitone up in pitch. We've gone from C and gone to C sharp, which is up one semitone pitch. If we have to go from C and go a semitone down, we are again going one step down. So what is the next step down? It's a B note. So a semitone is always one step away from the initial note. So let's say, for example, we start off at this G note. A semitone up is G sharp, and a semitone down is G flat. All right. So always remember, when you're going up in pitch, you're sharping, and when you're going down in pitch, you're flatting. So a semitone down from G is G flat, not F sharp. Now notice that all of these black notes have 2 note names, C sharp and D flat. It depends on the direction that you're going. So if you're starting at C and you go up, the next note is C sharp. If you're starting from D and you go one semitone down, it's D flat. Right, so it depends on the direction that you're going. If you're going up, you're sharpening. If you're going down, you're flatting. Right, so what is a whole tone then? Well, a whole tone is double a semitone. So a semitone, as we now know, from C is C sharp. So a whole tone being double means you take 2 steps. 1, 2. So a whole tone from C, 1, 2, is D. Now, let's take a look at a whole tone from C going down in pitch. So what do we do when we move a whole tone? We are going 2 steps. 1, 2. We have B flat. So from C, a whole tone, there's C, 1, 2. It's B flat. Right, there's B and there's B flat. So you'll remember from the exercises in the quiz that a lot of the questions had C as the initial note, and then I was asking for whole tones down, and sometimes with E, let's say here, I was asking for a whole tone up. Now whole tone up from E is 1, 2, F sharp, right? See, next to E is F, and next to F is F sharp. So a whole tone from E up in pitch is 1, 2 steps to F sharp. A semitone is just one step from E, and what's right next to E? F. Right, now you'll notice that there are groups of 2 black notes and groups of 3 black notes. And now this here is an octave. From C to the very next C. That is an octave, right? And so between the E and the F, There is no black note. So therefore, a whole tone from E is 1, 2, F sharp. And a whole tone down from F, 1, 2, is E flat. E flat. Right. You'll notice that these ones here with the 3 black notes, there are now black notes in between the notes. So from G, a semitone up is G sharp. A semitone down is G flat. So depending on where you start, it's either going to be G sharp or G flat. Now if you go a whole tone from G, in other words 2 steps, 1, 2, you get to A. So think of it like this. Let's take a look at playing through an octave from C. From C, a semitone is C sharp, a semitone is D. From D, a semitone is D sharp, and from a whole tone from D is 1, 2, E. Right. Now E, a semitone from E is F. A whole tone from E is 1, 2, F sharp. Right? So all you need to remember is that a whole tone is 2 steps and a semitone is half of that. In other words, 1 step. So that's why when answering these questions, if you are not sure of whole tones and semitones, draw a keyboard with at least 1 octave, but preferably 2 octaves like I have here. You can even take a screenshot of this and just save it as a picture or something like that, or I can post a picture of this keyboard, but it's actually a good idea to draw this so that you get used to knowing what this looks like. This is obviously easier for pianists, but those of you that are doing another instrument like guitar or saxophone or something, the notes are the same in terms of their distance. So a whole tone from E will always be F sharp, and that is 1, 2 steps, and a semitone will be right next to it, F. The same thing on a saxophone or a guitar. You just need to know where your notes are on your instrument. If you know that a certain fret on your guitar is, let's say, G, then a semitone, in other words, 1 fret up, a semitone up will be G sharp. And same as on a piano, here is G, and a semitone up is G sharp. Alright, so the big thing is not to get confused by both of those names. It depends on which way you're going, whether you're going up or down. Okay, so here is a grand staff. There is a treble clef, and here is a bass clef. Now you can see that this is actually one thing, right? On a piano, as we saw a little bit earlier, you have a right hand and a left hand, right? So the way I drew it, I had middle C in the middle of that 2 octave piano, and the left side of that middle note was now the bass clef, and the right side was the treble clef. Okay, so I'm going to insert a C note here. Alright, so this note is middle C. That is, when we looked at the piano keyboard, the middle C note. Alright, and this, you got to think of it as being in between this stave and this stave. Right, in between the treble clef and the bass clef. Now, as explained before, a semitone is 1 step. So starting from C, if we take a semitone up, we have C sharp. Now if we go back to C and we go a semitone down, we have B, right? The reason why is there is no C flat, because there is no black note between C and B. So if you remember on the piano keyboard, C and B were right next to each other. Now often in the questions in the quiz, I used C because of this fact, to try and test your ability to understand how to work with semitones and whole tones. So remember, if we are moving a whole tone, we are moving 2 steps. So we're going to move a whole tone up from C, just like in the quiz, right? So remember, a whole tone is 2 steps. So from C, 1 step is C sharp, and 2 steps is D. Right, now if we have to move a whole step down from C, 1 step is B, and 2 steps is B flat. Right, because there is a black note next to B. Let's start at E. Now remember, between E and F, there is no black note. There is no E sharp. So a semitone from E is F. A whole tone from E is 2 steps F sharp. If we start from E and we go a semitone down, we have E flat. Why? Because there is a black note next to E going down. So when we are going flat from E, there is an E flat. If we move a whole tone down from E, where do we end up? A semitone is E flat, a whole tone is D. So let's start at C again. Remember, if we go a semitone up from C, we have C sharp. If we go a semitone down from C, we have B. If we go a whole tone up from C, that is 2 steps. 1, 2. We end up at D. If we go a whole tone down from C, that's 2 steps again. We have B, and B flat is a whole tone down. So the main thing to remember about semitones and whole tones: a semitone is 1 step away from the note you were given, and a whole tone is 2 steps away. So the right strategy to answering these questions is to first draw a piano. It's a better idea to draw a 2-octave piano, and then you will clearly see that if you're given a certain note, let's say for instance G, you can plot G on the piano, and then you just have to work out what it is that they are asking. If they're asking for a semitone, you just take 1 step up, if it's a semitone up, and you'll find G sharp. If you go a semitone down, you will have G flat. So the big thing to remember is, if there are black notes next to the note that they have given you, you know you're going to be dealing with either a sharp or a flat, depending on the direction you are going.